What's up, guys? It is Patricia back with another edition of the GN10 live from Paris. We just finished the men's team final, so this is the beginning of our finals daily, basically recaps of what went down in Paris in Bercy Arena and all that transpired. So, if you didn't tune in to the men's team final, excuse me, um, then this is your spoiler alert. This is your spoiler warning. We are only going to be talking basically about the men's team final that just transpired. So stop now, go watch it, and then you can come back and we can talk about it. If not, we are going to now move on to what happened. So the medalists are named. We have our three medalists from Paris, and that is Japan with the gold, China with the bronze, not China with the bronze. I'm delusional. China with the silver, and the United States with the bronze. Great Britain finished fourth, and I believe Ukraine was fifth. This is a change of course. China qualified first, followed by Japan, then Great Britain, Ukraine, and the US. Now, the biggest story, of course, stateside is the US returning to the podium for the first time since 2008. And that was a huge moment, especially after they struggled so badly. And they did struggle badly. They'd be the first ones to tell you that in qualifying, namely Brody Malone falling four times. It was just a terrible day, is what Psych Caesar, one of the coaches for the US team, called it. Just kind of one of those like no good, very bad, terrible days. You don't really see it coming, but it's just happens. But they reset, refocused, and they came out today and hit 18 routines on all of their events. They started on rings, and it was really lights out from there. I believe they went 14 plus on rings, which for the US is amazing. There aren't a lot of ring specialists in the US, and in general, rings is just kind of an average event for the US. So for them to come out and go 14 plus is great. And then they went to vault. Paul Judah stuck his cause 1.5. It was an electric moment. I cannot describe to you how great it was. And then Brody Malone stuck his cause 1.5. And then Asher Hong finished with his Rise Guang, and it was one of the best Rise Guangs I've definitely seen from him. He just has so much adrenaline, I think, during these finals, during these actual meets, during training, and during podium training. Well, the podium training here was kind of terrifying. He did quite a few of them, and they were just like cover your eyes. Ah, scary. But he always comes out and just, I don't know if it's the adrenaline or what, but he just juices it. And today he did great. He kept it within the lines, took a hop back, and I mean that's all you can ask for with the Rise Guang. And then they went to parallel bars, hit there. High bar was where I was like, okay, this is going to be a defining moment for the guys. And you had Paul up first. Of course, Paul is like he's the anchor in the leadoff spot. I don't really know how to describe it, but he led off 5 of 6 events for the guys in qualifying, and then led off 4 of 6 events for the guys in the team final. And he has just been the MVP of the US team in Paris. There is no better way to describe it. I don't think any of the guys would disagree. He's been exceptional. And he hit his high bar just like he hit all of his other routines, of course. And then you have um, Fred and Brody come up and they both hit their routines. Fred hit his upgraded routine with Lucan, and then Brody actually took out his Lucan, and that was the best choice, to be honest. So he hit his routine after falling in qualifying, and then they were on to floor, and Brody didn't do floor. They had Asher and Fred and Paul do floor. They did great. And then they finished on pommel horse, which again is like, this was the other defining moment. Of course, the meet is winding down. Things are dwindling. You know that, like, you just got to do certain things. Like, was there a shot? Like, they knew that they had a shot for sure. They were either like in the top spot or in those top 3 spots kind of throughout the meet. So they knew that they were very much in it. And meanwhile, Great Britain and Ukraine have made these little mistakes. So all of this is kind of adding up to being like, the US doesn't even have to be perfect. They just need to hit pommel horse. And so Paul goes on, Paul goes on pommel horse. Beautiful set. Brody goes on pommel horse. He fell on first day. He doesn't fall this time. He does great. And then Steven comes up. And of course, Steven has been waiting the whole meet to be the last routine up. And in this case, he knows, and everybody knows, is basically like this is going to decide it whether they get the bronze or not. And I think they had a little, wiggle room. They just really needed to hit. And so Steven actually he makes this decision on the fly basically every time essentially. But he only did a 6-2 routine, not like the 6-3, 6-4, 6-5. He can go up to like a 6-7, Syke said. And he hit a 6-2 routine, but he did it very well. He scored like right under a 15. And that was it. I mean, he was just showing emotion. Everybody was showing emotion, especially Brody, who is not somebody who does show a lot of emotion typically, although we've seen it a lot more in his comeback from that major leg injury last year. And they did it with just hitting their routines. It wasn't even their full difficulty routines in some cases. Of course, they have up to the ante and the difficulty between Tokyo and now. That was kind of the whole point of the bonus system that the guys instituted this quad, and that's certainly part of the reason they got on this podium, but they also did do a good mix of clean execution and difficulty. And of course, in the mix zone afterwards, Syke was talking about how like the goal has always been the long-term goal is gold in LA. I think that this is a good starting point. I think that it's very clear by the fact that China and Japan had mistakes and they were still a few points ahead. I think that's a clear indication that, of course, there's still progress to be made. There's still difficulty that needs to be pushed. Is gold in LA in 4 years possible? I would say maybe, but there's going to have to be a lot of progress made between now and then as far as the difficulty goes. And then, of course, executing that difficulty and who those players are going to be on that team or who could be in contention for that team. We don't know. Brody in the mix zone afterwards, somebody already was asking about 2028, and he's just like, I don't know. I have a lot of life to live in the next year, but like, I'm not counting it out, basically. I don't know if he's going to come back. He is getting married next May, and, after 2 Olympics, might be like, I won a bronze medal. I'm going to leave it at that. But Brody's got a lot of fire in him, and then I could see based off his qualifying performance and the fact that he very much is capable of becoming an Olympic medalist, especially on high bar. I could see him maybe taking some time off, which I'm sure he will, and then coming back and being like, I'm going to push a little bit longer. But yeah, so that's kind of what happened with the US guys. Of course, Steven Nedorosik is the talk of the town right now. Everybody is loving Steven, pommel guy. They're just saying he pommeled that horse and all these different things. We shared a little something of some of the tweets that are going around. They're quite funny, but the general public has discovered Steven, and I think that's one of my favorite things. Because back in 2021, we did a story on him and how he missed out on the individual qualification for Tokyo, and then just missed out on that pommel spot that Alec Yoder ended up getting for Tokyo, and that was a great battle between them, and he was just on the losing end of that. But this time around, things worked in his favor. He, of course, was strategic about making this team that was ultimately automatically selected, but everything, worked out this time, and it's great to see him being so successful. And all the guys, a lot of them were very emotional. Paul is very emotional. He's just an emotional guy in the best way possible. He's very passionate, and he has obviously shown that he just delivers time and time again. So to see him be successful is great. And then the rest of the guys have really worked very hard to be here, and all of the guys within the program and the coaches and everyone, it's very much a team effort. That's what Curran Phillips said to me last year, is that, even if he's not on the team or some of these other guys aren't on the team, of course, Yul Moldauer is at home and Danielle Wittenberg is at home and Shane Wiskus is an alternate and Coy Young is an alternate. Like, they all contributed to this. And then Sam McCulloch is sitting in the mix zone, basically being told, like, hey, like, you weren't on the 2008 team, which won bronze, and then you were on the 2012 and the 2016 and then 2020 teams, and then they didn't win anything, and then 2024 wins something. So you're kind of like sandwiched in between these medalists. And he's just like, yeah, basically, like, I guess I wasn't meant to be that I would win as an athlete, but I'll come and do it as a coach. So, but he was smiling the whole time. He's very positive. Just everyone in that program is so happy. Um, Syke was crying, and Brett was crying, and a lot of emotions running high. So it was a very exciting time. It feels certainly like the U.S. men won gold in Paris, even though obviously they know that they didn't and they want to actually win gold. But that's to look forward to down the line. Right now, they can celebrate. And then, of course, Paul and Fred will reset for all around final, and then Steven will reset for pommel horse final, where he could see his star grow even brighter among for the world with potentially a medal or even a gold medal, since he did qualify with the top score. He ended up qualifying second behind Reese McGlinigan by tiebreak, but that is the U.S. story. It's super exciting. Of course, we have the women's team final tomorrow, and I'll touch on China and Japan, of course, real quick. I don't want to just talk about the U.S. when Japan had a great triumph, but China and Japan were having an exceptional battle throughout the full meet. China actually entered the last rotation about 3 points ahead. And then, of course, the last rotation for the leaders is high bar. They rotated in Olympic order. And everything kind of just crumpled for China very quickly. Xiao Ruotong would not let off, and he was having a good routine, and then he did his dismount, and he actually like scraped his knees. He didn't like fall, but he basically like he touched the mat with his knees, and of course that's a fall. And then Japan is hitting, and then Suede comes up, and he falls twice during the routine. And then Japan has hits with Daiki Hashimoto in their last spot, and he fell during qualifying. Daiki is, of course, the reigning Olympic all-around champion, reigning Olympic high bar champion, and he didn't even qualify to that final because he fell during qualifying. But he delivers when his team needs him, and essentially the deficit was erased by those 3 falls between Su and Xiao. And then you have Zheng Boheng in the last spot, and he is fully capable of hitting the score. It needed to be like something right around the like 15 twos. I forget the exact score, but he needed something in that range to edge Japan, and it wasn't enough. He had a large step on the dismount and just some little things, and they ended up finishing with the silver after having that lead for just a slight advantage for much of the meet. So it was very disappointing. I've read, of course, I don't speak Chinese, so we see a lot of the quotes coming through from the Chinese interpreters, and all of the Chinese athletes are very harsh on themselves. They're essentially not happy with the silver. They are like, we did not do our jobs today. We're not happy with this. We should have won gold. We had everything to win gold. And then they just, walked straight through the mix zone. They talked to a couple people, but otherwise left the mix zone. And then there's, of course, the discussion. They actually had to replace Sun Wei right before qualifying with Suede. And of course, Suede is the one who fell twice. And then they also left their national all-around champion, I believe that's Shi Kong, home. They didn't even put him on the team. And that was a point of contention, a point of discussion for people coming into these games. Why would you leave your national all-around champion home? So there's all these discussion points, all these what-ifs, but ultimately Japan did triumph. They did deliver, especially on high bar, and Japan was really exceptional throughout the day. They weren't perfect, just like China, but they made less mistakes than China ultimately across the board, and it resulted in them returning to the top of the podium for the first time, of course, since 2016. Russia won or the Russian Olympic Committee won in Tokyo. And it was a very emotional moment. I saw Kazuma Kaya in tears on the podium. And it's just, they're a very passionate bunch. They're so exceptional at what they do, but they have a lot of great sportsmanship. I mean, when Daiki left the podium after his high bar routine, you're talking about the last Japanese gymnast going up to Zhang Bohang, and he gave him a little side hug and patted him before Zhang is about to go and compete for this gold medal. I mean, there's so much respect between them. You'll see those interactions again during the all around final. They specifically have a lot of respect for each other in this friendly rivalry that they have. Um, but it was just an exceptional all around or team final all around. Of course, Great Britain finishing fourth is a bit heartbreaking for them. They did great in qualifying. Um, Ukraine fifth, they did well as well. They had a few mistakes as well. It's just these little things, but it was overall a great final. And then, of course, you had Italy and Switzerland and Canada. Canada making its first team final ever at the Olympics. So shout out to them. But yep, that is the men's team final in a nutshell. It's great to kind of recap it with you guys. Of course, tomorrow we have the women's team finals, so we'll be back. We'll talk about it. We will recap it. I'm sure that there will be a lot of excitement there. If you haven't already seen, the US did release their lineups for tomorrow, and they have actually benched Hesley Rivera in favor of having the four veterans compete and on all four events for that gold medal. And this is a strategic decision, of course. I mean, honestly, it's in my opinion and based off the numbers the right decision, because they don't want what happened in Tokyo to happen again, of course, and they have to make the right decision as far as the numbers go. And ultimately they dropped both of Hesley's scores from qualifying. She competed on bars and beam, which is what they brought her for, and she had some mistakes on beam. Bars wasn't as good as the other athletes, and ultimately they dropped those scores, and they don't want to have those scores when they know that they could obviously have other high scores from Biles, Childesley, and Carey. And then Carey, the reigning Olympic floor champion, will only compete on vault because she balked in her final pass during qualifying on floor, and she hasn't been feeling well, and I'm sure there's various reasons why she will not compete on floor, but ultimately that is what's best for the team, just like it seems not having Hesley compete is what's best for the team. So that's not to say that Hesley didn't deserve to be here. She's done an exceptional job. She's 16. She's got the eyes of the world looking upon her with this all-star team and being the only new Olympian, but she has done a very good job, and I'm sure that she will do a great job of supporting this team tomorrow and being ready to step in if she needs to. And of course, the last thing I'll say is that we will be watching, of course, Simone Biles' status. Like we said, it seemed like she just had a little pain in her calf. I'm really thinking that it was more of a calf cramp than anything, which can be the most painful thing. Mainly, like, one of the things that my husband and I were discussing, and he's here with me in Paris, is she was crawling down that vault podium, and she's like giggling, laughing, like beaming, smiling. She's really like kind of like laughing her butt off about this. And if she was in a lot of pain from like a serious or like major injury, I just feel as though that she wouldn't be doing that. It seems more like I'm cramping and like what the hell like, so she's just like, I guess I'm just gonna do this to keep myself safe, like, so it's a lot more lighthearted, and so I think that that's a sign that it is, as Cecile Landy of course said, that it's just a little pain, a little something, and of course they'll evaluate her, but she's in the lineups and she seems to be um enjoying the moment, doing what she loves, as she said on Instagram, and we're looking forward to seeing her and the team and the other teams compete in this team final. It's going to be a very, very exciting battle for silver and bronze. I cannot reiterate that enough, especially with France not making the final. You, of course, have Italy that qualified second, China that qualified third, and then you have Brazil. Great Britain made a lot of mistakes in qualifying. They could rebound. It's just going to be a very exciting final, a lot to look forward to, and I can't wait to circle back here tomorrow and recap it with you. But until then, thanks for listening, and I'll talk soon.